Most lessons will tell you that if you want to learn how to play jazz guitar, then you need to know all the scales in all positions, in all keys. You need to know all the arpeggios and all the chords and understand all the music theory. But in what order should you actually go about learning all of this? And is it really true that you need to spend more than a year just practicing scales and arpeggios in order to start playing jazz guitar? That's not how I learned to play jazz, and it's also rarely how I teach it. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. My name is Jens Larsen, learn jazz, make music. The moment that I figured out that I wanted to learn how to play jazz was when I listened to Charlie Parker playing Casey Blues and Loverman. I was actually checking out a lot of albums from the library because I wanted to explore some fusion jazz that I was being recommended, and I didn't really find any fusion that I liked, but I did find Charlie Parker and John Scofield and Pat Martino, and that was music that I immediately connected to, and I definitely wanted to check out how to play that. It was both fascinating and very complicated, but also something that I had to explore. This is probably how most of us get into the music. You find something that you think sounds great and you want to learn how to play like that. It's not because you've listened to Wes Montgomery playing scales.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Or Bill Evans analyzing a piece of music. It's because the music is great, not the skills required to perform it. That's why you got into jazz. And of course, this is something you want to keep in mind if you're trying to learn jazz as well. It's not only about learning all the scales in all positions, in all keys. It's also about learning how to play the music. In this video, I'm going to go over what is wrong with this approach, what is missing, and how you fix it so that you can have a more efficient and certainly also a more fun way of learning jazz. Where is this coming from? I think any half-decent teacher will tell you that it's going to be a huge advantage when you're learning jazz if you know all your scales and all your arpeggios and all keys and positions, which is solid advice actually. I think that's very true. If you're trying to learn songs, you want to know the scales and the arpeggios, the raw material for playing those songs. If you're starting lessons, then it's also typical that you'll be told to start practicing your major scales so that you can learn them in all positions, and probably you're going to be given some important scale exercises along with that. So something like diatonic triads and diatonic 7th chord arpeggios. Of course, this depends on your level, but I think most teachers get this right and help you to start working on this. And teachers are often better than what we give them credit for. So what's different? You're saying that this is good advice. The difference is that while you want to work on those skills, that's not all that you need to do. There's more to playing jazz than just knowing the scales and the arpeggios. And people reducing jazz, which is a huge, rich genre with a lot of great music, to just scales, are people who don't know jazz or maybe even don't like jazz. This is something that's more likely to go wrong if you're studying yourself. I think any good teacher will help you also apply the material you're practicing, not let you just practice scales and arpeggios for several years to learn that. And it's great to work on your fretboard overview, your technique, all the harmony and theory that you need, but it should not overshadow everything else. Those skills are not everything you need to learn. So if you only focus on learning scales and arpeggios, you're not really gonna learn how to play jazz. And that's a problem. Think of it like this: the notes are only a small part of the puzzle. And there's really nothing stopping you from taking a simple piece of music and then learn all the scales and arpeggios that you need to play that piece of music in one position. And that's actually gonna help you being able to play a great solo in that one position. When you work on actually playing music, when you're working on playing that song, then you're developing your vocabulary, your phrasing, your swing feel, your improvisational skills, but also your rhythm and your timing. And all of these things are extremely important and also stuff that you need to develop if you actually want to learn how to play jazz. So if you're not working on all these skills, then there really is something wrong with your approach. You need to work on all the skills that you use when you're playing music. And I think the biggest part of that is that if you want to be good at playing music, then you need to practice playing music by playing music. Focus the way that you work on scales and arpeggios so that it helps you when you want to play a song. Trying to take a simple song, as I already mentioned, you can take a basic song, learn all the scales and arpeggios in one position and start making music with it. It doesn't have to be giant steps or rhythm changes, even though if you're working with target notes, then that's also not complete science fiction and fairy tales. It really is pretty simple. If you want to learn a melodic minor all over the neck and really know that scale, then that's something that's quite difficult, takes a lot of time. But if you're studying a song in C major and you're using this position, then learning A melodic minor as this fingering is not nearly as difficult, and when you see it in relationship to the C major, then you actually also already have an idea about what notes you want to hit and how to make music with it. So learning it in that context is going to give you a lot more information about how to use it, which just practicing the positions won't. But don't start with Stella by Starlight. Even if I did do that in one position, that's not a great tune to begin with. Let's try this out on a song, because that's also the process that I want you to go through. And I'm going to do this using Ladybird. That's a chord progression that I really like. It's a really easy song, but it's also not so simple that there's nothing to talk about, which is of course also important with this. I'm going to do this in the key of C major, and a scale position that's really common for C major that you probably already know would be in the 8th fret. So that's what I'm going to take as a starting point. If we quickly look at this song, it's only 16 bars, so it's going to be quite quick to just analyze what's going on. The first chord is a C major chord, so we need a C major scale for that. The next two chords are F minor 7, B flat 7. That's a 2-5 in E flat major. In this context, it's actually a 4 minor progression, but we don't really need to worry too much about that. We can also say it's F minor 7, B flat 7. Let's just play that as a 2-5 in E flat, and then we need an E flat major scale. Then we go back to C major 7, and then we get a 2-5-1 in the key of A flat major. So that's B flat minor, E flat 7, and A flat major. We need an A flat major scale for that. After this, it goes to A minor 7, D7. That's a 2-5 in G major, so we need a G major for that. And then we're back in C major with D minor 7, G7 to C major 7. And then of course the turnaround has this short stop where we go to first A flat major, and then we get a tritone substituted dominant. So we have a D flat 7. And the A flat major, we already covered that. We have that scale in there. That's for E flat 7 and A flat major 7. For the D flat 7, we actually also need a G flat major scale. And that's all the scales that we need. So in one position, we need a C major scale for the C major 7 chord. We need E flat major for F minor 7, B flat 7. Notice that I'm just using the scale positions that I normally use. Whatever you want to use really depends on what you've been practicing. Then it goes back to C major 7. We already covered that. Then we get B flat minor 7, E flat 7, and A flat major 7. We could use an A flat major scale like this one for that. After this, it moves to A minor 7, D7. We need a G major scale for that. And then we're back in C major, and then the short stop to E flat 7, A flat major, and D flat 7 where we need a G flat major scale. That could be this one. In this way, I've reduced the scale material that you need for this song. Clearly there is some stuff in this song, but at the same time, you can still practice all this in 5 minutes. If you add the diatonic arpeggios, then you can also relate those to the song. And in that way, you're really building some material that you can start using if you want to improvise over the song. And you're gonna get close to being able to play the song quite quickly. And that's where you wanna go, because you're gonna learn a lot from trying to improvise over the song, connecting the different chords, coming up with melodies. And that's where you're really gonna develop the ability to play some jazz, which you won't develop if you're just gonna get stuck in just practicing scales. Somebody should really make a course where it's about learning how to make your own jazz lines and figuring out what to practice, apply that to a simple song. If you want to learn jazz, then of course you also need to practice actually playing jazz music and playing jazz songs. I think when I say it like this, it's obvious, and the whole point of this video is of course to give you the ability to take the stuff that you work on and then use that when you're playing songs. And there is another problem that I think is really holding back a lot of people who are teaching themselves to play jazz, and that's what I'm talking about in this video that I think you should check out, called The Worst Mistake If You Want to Play